All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Sportsmen. As always, Mikey V. As always, Joey D. I am Neil Arnett, and we are back. This is our fantasy football viewer question episode. We're not going over anything other than your questions that you sent in for fantasy football. Gentlemen, are we excited about this?
Yes, this is a yearly tradition
It's a
now. It's
special
become.
time.
Yes,
We just did our draft the other day, so
We
you
did.
know we're kind of already in the mindset there. But let's just jump right into them. Josh Perry with the first question. Already have Jahmyr Gibbs and Jalen Waddle. How should I approach the draft? It's a one QB, one flex league.
Jalen Waddle and Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, so he's got a running back one,
Mhm.
and he's got I would say Waddle's, a running or wide receiver one, but a lower tier one. I would try to get another running back. I think for me, if it's only a one QB league, you don't need to draft a quarterback probably up until like the fourth or fifth round, Michael, I would say. And and there's such a plethora of wide receivers this year that you could still get really, really good receivers later on, like in the second, third round, even. I would say try to get a top tier other running back. So you got Gibbs and another stud because the running back class, it really drops off pretty quickly. I mean, you got McCaffrey, who most people are taking at one, and then you got after that, between Brees Hall and then you got what's his name from Atlanta,
Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
But then you got guys like Jonathan Taylor and stuff, and it kind of drops off. Isaiah Pacheco. So I would try to get another top tier running back. And then you can start to focus on building up your receiver core, maybe getting a top tier tight end in the third or fourth round. And then quarterback, you could wait in a one QB league till 5 or 6 round. Mikey, what do you think?
Yeah, you can. You could always wait a long time on a QB. Again, fantasy question interesting because there's never enough detail given with the question. I don't know how many other guys are in this league. It sounds like it's a dynasty league, obviously a two-keeper dynasty league. You have Gibbs, you have Waddle, but I don't know the scoring format. I don't know how many guys are playing. I don't know what pick you have, right? Tick, did he say what pick he has?
Yeah, no, he didn't.
Okay.
No.
So, but in general, I would say you want to go BPA, wide receiver, or running back. I think wherever you're sitting, I would just go best player available,
Yeah.
minus tight end, obviously, and minus quarterback. There's none worth that first round pick, in my opinion, unless like it's a 12-man league and everyone's keeping two guys and they're all wide receivers and running backs. Then it may be a different conversation. I don't know the answer to that. Only you do. But I mean, listen, here's the interesting thing about Gibbs and Waddle. They're both dinged up from the preseason, right? I think they'll both probably be full go week one, but they're both dinged up. So I don't think you should weigh wide receiver or running back over either. Gibbs's average drafting position right now is about pick 12. And who was the other player ticket? Waddle?
Waddle.
Yeah, Waddle's
He's probably like
Waddle's average
25.
is like 38. 38
Yeah,
is where he's
25 to
going
30,
average in a
yeah.
draft. So it's like the value maybe is higher with Gibbs, but again, I would take a look at who is being kept from the other guys in your league. If it's wide receiver heavy, take that running back, like Joe said. If it's running back heavy, take another wideout to complement Waddle. Because while Waddle is a big contributor, he's not like an upper top tier guy. He's like right beneath it, and he's got great production when he's healthy, but he's a little dinged up. And he's not as high up on the pecking order in his position group as Gibbs is. So I would just look at it that way. You got to take into consideration who the other keepers are in the league.
You
Yeah,
never know.
I'll always
ahead, Tick.
lean running back just because of everything that Joe said. It's a steep drop off, man. And in a keeper league like this, you got to imagine that a lot of them are being kept. So you
Right.
want to kind of snag one of these guys before they go. But yeah, I mean, also QB, you never know. The guy who won our league last year drafted Jalen Hurts first overall, I think, and
But that was also
Yeah.
a two QB league, though, Tick.
That's true.
I think
That's true.
it really depends. If you're a 10 or 12 man league, you could get a very good quarterback like a Joe Burrow in the fifth or sixth round, probably, because if you're looking at the guys who are going first, versus probably Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, probably top three.
Lamar
Lamar
Jackson,
Jackson
yeah,
in there too.
yeah.
But that means that you're that's already 4 QBs. If you're a 10-man league, you could get a really good quarterback late.
Another big thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know it looks like a standard lineup league where it's a flex position and a single quarterback. Is it like our league where it's 3 wide receivers, or is it 2 wide receivers? That's a big thing too. If it's 2
Right.
running back starters and 3 wide receiver starters, then you got to kind of give that wide receiver position a little bit more consideration, because you have to trot 3 guys out every Sunday, not just 2. So again, these are questions I don't know the answer. We don't know the answer to, given the information that we have. So we can only give you, back, just general, broad stroke advice on that. But I think everybody makes a pretty good argument for whatever they
Your
suggested.
answer is the best, Mike. You take the best guy available, and you never know, no matter how prepared you are, how much you study the board. Every year it seems like when we draft, I have two leagues. There's a guy who takes a flyer pick, and all of a sudden there's somebody that you didn't expect to be there. Like I got Justin Jefferson at 7th pick overall. So like you just don't know whether or not that's going to pan out or not. I don't know, but I'm just saying I think Mikey's right. You take the player that you think is going to be the best at that position, and you don't look back.
Yeah, with Jefferson, I think people might be a little nervous about Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. But a one QB league, if it is, or passing the ball. With a one QB league or one QB spot, and then if it's a 10-man league, that's part of why when I first started our league, I pushed so hard for the 2 QBs in a 10-man league, just because if it's one QB, 10 guys, they can become an afterthought. There are 10 pretty good quarterbacks out there who can service that position. But when you get 2 going, you really, especially with the draft, you have to strategize around that. So that's,
and especially how you can only hold 2 on the roster, which makes it very interesting. That makes it very difficult because, that bye week, the one quarterback has the bye week, are you going to cut him? Are you going to drop him? Are you going to hold him and sacrifice the quarterback points in the flex spot? That's all questions that you kind of have to just go through as the season, whatever your record is, your standing is, and just take it as it comes.
Yep. All right, moving right along here. Frankie Keedy wants to know Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb this year. CeeDee coming off of massive fucking contract. I think a record-breaking signing bonus he got. He also wants Cutsy to know that you're lying about not getting hungover. That's just
oh no.
I don't know where he's getting.
He's not happy
from.
about that. He's not happy.
I mean, Michael, you saw me the day after my wedding. How did I look? I look.
Yeah, but I don't. You look fine. I mean, you look fine.
Yeah, I saw you eating lunch at that lobby restaurant with the dog. You looked,
it's a great restaurant.
Great.
Yeah,
great restaurant. A good restaurant.
Yeah.
All right, but CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill?
I'm gonna go with. I might not be the popular pick because Tyreek Hill is like a sexy guy, pick to take. I'm gonna go with CeeDee Lamb. Listen, the fact that they just committed so much money to this guy. To me, I always say follow the money. So the fact that this guy's getting paid so much shows and indicates to me that he is absolutely going to be getting the ball early and often. And the other second reason why I would take him is because of the fact of you look at who the secondary receiver is. And we just talked about Waddle. When Waddle is healthy, he could be, a cusp wide receiver 1 on most teams. Dallas, who's their secondary receiver? Like
Brandon Cooks.
That's not even close.
First half of the year, he did nothing. Second half of the year, they started to utilize him a little bit more. I think he can do a little bit, and then they got
I
Jalen
understand
Tolbert,
that, but they used to have Pollard, who was a pass catching running back. He's gone. Schultz, I think, is their tight end, who's pretty solid, but they really, outside of CeeDee Lamb, he is their thoroughbred receiver. And if you're in a PPR league, he is going to be catching 4, 5, 6 balls a game. I think to me that gives the value. Listen, at the end of the day, if you have either of these guys, you're going to be in a good position. But to me, if you're in a PPR league, I would go with CeeDee Lamb. I think he's the guy that I want to have on my team. And plus, I not that Dak is great, but I have a little bit more faith in Dak Prescott throwing the ball than Tua, especially for a whole season. So that's where I am. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you said you can't go wrong with either, that's kind of where I'm at with this question. Certainly, Yes, I think Brandon Cooks actually could have a decent little year, but yes, Waddle is the preferred wide receiver two if you're going to have a wide receiver two as a supporting guy over Cooks, no question about that. Listen, CeeDee Lamb's only 25, Tyreek Hill's 30. And I'm not saying Tyreek Hill's slowing down, but he's 30 years old. CeeDee Lamb's in the ultra prime of his career. Obviously, I can't say that Hill's not because the guy went nuclear again last season, but you know, if you're a little concerned of maybe a little bit of regression, maybe a little bit more injury prone, maybe you do lean CeeDee Lamb. And to Joe's point, in the PPR leagues, I do think that CeeDee Lamb is probably going to dominate more targets and acquire more targets per game than maybe Tyreek Hill will, only because when Waddle's out there, like Waddle has to get the ball too. And also the Dolphins have these wonderful running backs that they could get the ball to Chain and Mostert, and all those guys could play out of the backfield. So Miami's kind of got like that, that track meet offense that a lot of guys are going to touch the rock. Dallas, like to me, it's like, it kind of is like CeeDee Lamb's show because Ezekiel Elliott, he's ancient. I don't know how long he's going to last back there. And, outside of him, Ferguson's a nice tight end, but I don't think Dak gets him the ball enough. So, yeah, CD could be the concentrated target guy. Ultimately, if you miss out on one of them, but you get the other, I think you'll still be fine.
I'm looking at their stats from last year, Mikey. 135 receptions for CeeDee Lamb, 119 for Tyreek Hill, 1,749 yards for CD, 1,799 for Tyreek, touchdowns, 12 for CD, 13 for Tyreek, but CD had two rushing touchdowns. I mean, listen, they're right in line with each other. And like, I think that's why
Tyreek missed a couple games too.
I know. But I think that it just goes to show they're both elite pass catchers and top tier tier one wide receivers that you can plug them in every week and know that they're going to perform.
They're the consensus top two wide receivers off the board in almost every draft. So, I mean, you really can't. They're
Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be
as well,
up there too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have not much to add. I agree with pretty much completely with both of these guys. I just look at the QBs. I'm not a believer in Tua. I think he definitely has some bad weeks, which will result in Tyreek having a few bad weeks. Not that can't happen with Dak and CD. I'm leaning a little bit more towards him, certainly in a PPR league. And he's just, like Mikey said, he's coming into the prime of his career. And Tyreek's not old, but he's definitely moving in that direction. Brandon Cooks is just, man, that guy is on a mission to play for every fucking team before he retires. He's been around forever with.
Was he Oregon State?
I don't know where he came from.
He was a Beaver, I think, right?
May have been.
I think he was.
Now he's played for everybody. If there was a transfer portal back then, he would have played for 5 different schools.
I think Joe's right. I think he was Oregon State. I think Joe's right.
Yeah, Oregon State University.
I'm going to go with CD. All right, moving on here. Tom Platts wants to know, how do you prepare for draft night?
Oh, man. If you really want to prepare, you should do a little bit of reading. I mean, just to familiarize yourself with like strategies. I would say the most important thing is just know the format of your league. Know what the scoring format is. It's critical. I mean, is it a PPR league? Is it a half PPR league? Is it a standard scoring league? How many guys are in your league? What does the roster look like? How many guys can you hold on the bench? All things like that, I think, are critical. Aside from the obvious, like you should run some mock drafts. There's plenty of sites that you could do it on for free. Run through a couple mocks if you really want to get into it. And then, of course, there's guys who aren't going to prepare at all, and that's fine too. I don't prepare nearly as much as I used to, because you get busy, and the older you get, the more shit you got to do. But I would say mock drafting and knowing the scoring format. You got to know like what the scoring format and how your league is set up. Like read the scoring format. I would just suggest, because you'll be surprised how many times you go in there and you see, oh, I didn't know this was this. I didn't know that was that. So just familiarize yourself.
I agree with Mikey. I think like it depends on what league you're on. If you're in an ESPN league, I'll go on there. I'll do some mock drafts. I think but again, the other thing too I'll do is I'll reach out to some of the other guys who are either in front of me picking or after me and kind of get an idea of who they like or what they're looking for. Sometimes some guys keep, those things close to the chest, but sometimes guys will be like, oh, I got to get this guy. So it kind of gives you an idea of who people like, so you can kind of project, especially the first or second round, like who might be going off the board, that so you can kind of pick and choose. The other thing too is some leagues are dynasty leagues, right? So if you're
That's
doing
right.
a dynasty league, I think it's really, really vital to know, look over your lineup from the prior year and see where those guys were drafted, where you can keep them in certain positions. Because if it's a dynasty league like that, the first question, you got Jahmyr Gibbs and Waddle. I mean, that could be the make or break in terms of having the players set up in your lineup so that you are set for success right out of the gates before you even draft. And then knowing which players you're going to keep will help tailor to what players you should be going for in those first early rounds. So if you're keeping a running back and a top tier receiver, well, then maybe now you're going to go in a 2 QB league, and with your first pick, you're going to pick the best quarterback right out of the gates. So things like that really make a difference, but it really depends. Like Mikey said, you got to know your league, have an idea of like how that draft is going to look, and then knowledge is power. Make sure, like I think the best thing is knowing late picks. Anybody can pick
Yeah,
early
That's right.
on.
That's
The
right.
first
Yeah.
the first 5 rounds, really, everybody knows who's going. It's when you get to the later rounds, are you taking a rookie who's maybe not really being projected as high, or maybe you're taking a handcuff for a guy, or
Right.
even
Right.
this year, like Nick Chubb, maybe you're taking him with the late flyer pick, and then he
Yep.
comes back and all of a sudden he's great. So I think that that's really where you can give yourself an advantage, is those later rounds where you can steal or really get a guy who maybe hasn't, kind of established himself in the league yet with a lot of these rookies, and you can get a sleeper that can really win your draft at the end of the year. Look at Puka Nakua last year. I mean, that guy is a
As a league
prime
winner.
example,
Yep.
and that also goes into the first couple weeks of the season being dialed in with who's going to be on the waiver wire. Those first 2-3 weeks of the waiver wire selections go so far in terms of getting a top tier talent that no one knows of yet, that can really cement your roster and put you at a position of power.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Joe makes a great point. The later those mock drafts are so important, not because of the first 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, but those late guys when wide receivers are getting sparse, running backs, there's almost no one there. I mean, that's when you need to be a little prepared for what's going to be around in rounds 7, 8, 9. But similar to Mikey, man, there was a time in my life where fantasy was like my life.
Yeah.
Didn't have a whole lot going on. So I did all this preparation. I was reading up on everybody. I'd go back to everyone's numbers. And nowadays, the main thing that I do, if anything at all, is I'll try and familiarize myself with rookies, young talent that's coming in. If I didn't watch much college football, if like see, like a Blake Corum, like what's he doing? What's his role going to be like on that team? Wide receivers, just familiarizing myself, because I certainly don't watch as much college football as I used to. I almost don't watch much at all anymore. I dedicate my time to Sundays now. Saturdays, I just don't have the time. So like I think even in our draft, I even was like, who is Lad McConkey? And he was like
Yeah,
the
that's a
best
big
wide
guy to know.
receiver in the league last year for Georgia, or one of them.
PPR
Um,
darling.
yeah, and I try to familiarize myself. Obviously, this year I just didn't, but that's one of the few things I'll still try and do, is just see what the rookies are up to and how they're projected to fit into the new team that they're on.
Also, know who's injured.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that are big name guys that are on the pup list. They're going to start the year on the pup list and the IR, and they may miss the first month of the season. Nick Chubb, TJ Hawkinson, Jonathan Brooks, Keaton Mitchell, Keandre Miller, Kendrick Bourne, Tyler Higbee, Odell
DeAndre
Beckham Jr.
Hopkins.
So like you got to be familiar with the injury guys too, because you don't want to like embarrass yourself and take a guy who's just got put on IR. Like just be cognizant of that, because that happens in drafts, and man, is
I
that
can't.
an ugly
On
scene.
the opposite side of that, too, if you have, like, for example, I took a flyer with Kyle Pitts this year because I have Kirk Cousins, and I want to see if he will finally have a good year. But then as we got later in the rounds, Hawkinson from the Vikings, who was a great tight end,
Yep,
was
yep.
still available. So I picked him up knowing he's going to miss several weeks early on. But once he comes back, he's going to insert himself as one of the upper echelon tight ends, and I can have that opportunity to kind of pick back and forth. So that's another thing too, is Mikey's right. Don't pick them as your starter, but maybe if you have a position on your bench that you can fill, gives you another option. You don't need him probably right out of the gates, but 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season, he's going to come back. Somebody like that could make an impact. So,
You know who was very tempting that I was so close to picking him, but I just couldn't. I had to stay away was Mark Andrews, man. He's unbelievable, but he
I
is
love him,
just
man.
not reliable, dude. He just gets hurt.
He's reliable. If he plays, he's reliable.
Well, yeah, correct. If
Yeah,
he
it's
plays,
just
he's a stud.
he sure is. And another one is I can't believe Nick Chubb is coming. I thought his career was going to be over. I think he took a big pay cut to come back.
You talk about a guy who's been through the ringer, man. That guy has been through the ringer, and that could be Jerome Ford's backfield moving forward, no matter what. Even when Chubb comes back, it's going to be.
He's a good running back.
He's a very good running back, and he's not talked about at all. I think his ADP is. Where's his ADP, Jerome Ford?
Oh, it's
down
gotta be
there,
like
man.
90.
It's wild.
100.
It's wild. I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Tick, you could go. I can't even. Maybe I passed him already, but I don't know. Oh, there he is. His average his ADP, Jerome Ford is 117.
Yeah, 100 is what.
I mean, that means you could get him in what?
Does come back and have a magical season, then you're sort of screwed.
It's a lot of ifs though with that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but no,
but
you're
man,
not
when
wrong.
he was healthy, though, he was.
Yes,
he is
reliable 100-yard every week, touchdown every week, just like just a machine. Derrick Henry like.
Yep. All right, moving on here. Carlos Guerrero wants to know solid 3 running backs to look out for.
I mean, what are we talking about? Like the best or like mid-tier guys?
I'd imagine, like not the best of the best, like not McCaffrey, but like guys who might surprise you.
I think I wouldn't sleep on Derrick Henry this year, being put in that Baltimore offense, run heavy offense. Everyone knows that Harbaugh loves to run the ball. And I think they got away from that in the AFC title game, and I think it hurt them against the Chiefs. And that backfield, that's going to be his backfield. And it's not like these defenses can load the box. It's not like when Henry was in Tennessee and you play the Titans and it's like, all right, you're going to face a 9-man, 8-man box every single fucking play. You can't do that when you have Lamar and when you have Zay Flowers on the outside and when you have Mark Andrews and you got Lamar's running threat. You can't just load the box. You have to respect Lamar's arm. I mean, I would not sleep on Derrick Henry this year. I think he's, not a first round guy. He's not being drafted a lot in the first round. He's a second round, ADP guy, mid-second round ADP. That's a valuable pick in my opinion. I think
Are you worried about Lamar though, with the amount that he rushes touchdowns, that's going to cut into Henry's? I mean, in the past, Henry was always the go-to guy inside the 5-yard line. Now you see a lot of pick and rolls with Lamar where he runs in. Do you think that impacts a guy like Henry who's not going to be catching a lot of balls?
I would think that the Ravens would look to conserve Lamar's body as much as they could now that they have a guy like Derrick Henry back there, and they would use his mammoth size. I mean, Henry is a monster, physically he's a monster. I would think goal to go, he's got to be the guy now. I mean, why put Lamar in a position, especially Lamar apparently lost a lot of weight. He's a little bit, thinner of a package this year to be faster, and maybe he's moving a lot better. Why risk it? I don't know. If I was Harbaugh, I would be utilizing Henry as much as I would. Listen, I hate to say it like this, but I would, burn the tires on Derrick Henry this year. I mean, that's what you got him for. That to me felt like an all-in type move for Baltimore to bring him in the first place. So why not kick the tires on Derrick Henry and just run him into the ground? I mean,
I was worried a little bit of the same exact thing with Saquon, just because Jalen Hurts is the guy that,
Yep.
I'm nervous about what's going to happen there.
I'll give a couple guys who I like. I mean, I'll start off. Obviously, we're not talking the top 4 or 5 running backs. I think that's pretty obvious. James Cook to me is a guy who's very versatile. You could get him towards I think his average running back position is 13th. You got to look now that with the amount of targets that have been lost in the receiving core for the Buffalo Bills, they're going to drop down to this guy a lot. And he's shown his ability as a pass catcher on screen passes, on little ins and outs. I think Josh Allen's going to use him often, and he's got the number 1 starting running back position. I think he is a steal if you can get him. You don't need to put him. You could probably get him in 2nd or 3rd round. I think he's a great player to look at. Another guy I'd look at, and he's not a sexy player by
He
any
caught
means.
44 balls last year
I'm
for
telling you.
500 yards.
Yeah.
Joe, every Buffalo game I watch, and not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
every Buffalo game I watch, I said, why do they not get the ball in James
Doesn't
Cook
make
hands
sense.
more?
I don't know
why.
why. And
He,
now they
I
got
love
to.
that.
I mean,
I love that.
They got Kincaid. They lost Diggs. I mean, I just think that he is going to be heavily inserted within that offensive playbook, and I think he's a great guy. I'll give you another guy who is not a sexy pick, but Rachaad White. This is a guy who flies under the radar with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Had a great season last year. And I think that he's a guy who's going to get you some points. I think he's a guy, he's not going to be the sexy pick, but I think he's going to do enough to get you by week to week. He's going to get you touchdowns. He's going to have the main share of the backfield. And again, he's a playmaker. He can do a lot. I think Mayfield is going to be looking downfield a lot, trying to feed Mike Evans, trying to get the ball down. I think he's a good change of pace player. He'll get you a lot of runs. So those are 2 guys I think that are later picks for
Catches
running
a lot
backs.
of balls. Rachaad
Again,
White.
same thing. I love guys like that who can catch the ball out of the backfield. I really do.
I actually like him a lot more as a receiving back than I do as a rushing back, because he's never broken in 2 seasons where he's gotten a lot of carries. He's never averaged 4 yards a carry. He's 3.6, 3.7.
Michael, he had
back-to-back
64
years.
receptions last year.
No. He I've established that. He's
I know.
definitely
I'm
a
just
great
saying.
receiving back.
64, and when you're a PPR league, a guy like that goes a long way.
He is, and that to me is like if Rachaad White didn't have those receiving numbers backing it up, to me he reminds me of Najee Harris, wherein he doesn't break any kind of runs that excite me whatsoever. It's
990
3
yards rushing,
3 yards in a cloud of dust every time he touches the ball, but the receiving aspect is where it gets interesting with him and why he could provide so much value, especially in a PPR league. But the James Cook play, I really like a lot. So, I mean, if we go with our top 3 guys, I think we would say myself, Henry, and Joe would take Cook, and then Ticket, you give 1, and then we'll have this gentleman's 3.
I'll give 2, but I'll use this first one as the one I'll go with. I like a guy who was, it's like this, no one was touching him for a long time. I picked him up early on in the season. Kyron Williams for the Rams.
Yeah.
He's returning punts this year now. How about that?
There you go. But he that's another guy who can catch out of the backfield. And as we all know, thanks to Mikey, they don't have the most stellar air attack over there in Los Angeles currently.
This guy, man.
Not a big old Matt Stafford guy. You're not a Stafford guy. You think he's cooked?
I think he's cooked. Yeah, I do think he's cooked.
Between Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Lad McConkey.
Lad's on the
Chargers.
Lad's on the
Chargers.
Chargers. But between Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, I mean, they got a good aerial attack.
They do, but if you believe that Matt Stafford is cooked, then you don't.
Do you think that Blake Corum is going to push him at all for like a share of that backfield though? Because that's a big time, name out of Michigan. He was a very, very popular back at Michigan. He was extremely successful. Do you think he's going to
possibly
scavenge some carries from him?
I think he definitely will, but I mean, you look at the backfield that worked in Detroit last year. Sure,
that was a real nice job. Yep.
He probably should have gotten more touches than he did, because anytime he touched the ball, he was so explosive. But they did a nice job. I would like to think that they're going to do a similar thing, because Kyron was just so good last year, and he could catch out of the backfield. So I'll go with him for our 3. But another quick one is that guy, a chain that Mikey picked up last year, and he changed his team for a while until he got hurt.
Yeah.
I think
Mostert's good too, though.
That's
the only thing. Mostert is also really good, but out of the backfield. I don't know how much. I agree with you. He's explosive, but 2 things worry me about him. Tick is he got injured last year, and then Mostert is a really talented back as well. And
Mostert's getting up there though, Joe. He's 32. He's 32 years old.
It seemed like last year they didn't go to him a ton when a chain was around. It seemed like,
I mean, why would you? Chain was like a fucking track star. It was insane. This kid. He touched the ball, he was gone. Kid was insane. But yeah, I listen, those kind of backfields always scare people, where it's going to be where there's not one clear bell cow, but how many teams in the league have a bell cow guy anymore? How many of them? Not many.
Etienne is
many.
another guy to take a look at who could
Love
be really good
Etienne,
this year.
Joe. Love Etienne.
Etienne could be really good this year as well.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy that could do everything. But he's
Yeah.
got a lot of mileage on those tires too. I know he's young relatively in the league, but remember he was at Clemson a long time. There's a lot of mileage on those wheels. But I do like him a lot. I do. I do.
All right, let's move along here to Drew Rippingham. We've already touched on this a little bit, but
What a name.
it is.
Good
That's
name.
a good one.
Great
Rippingham.
name.
What round do you take a QB? Depends on the league, but
Yeah, I mean, that's just
Depends. If it's not, excuse me, if we said if it's not a 2 QB league like we talked about before, I mean, listen, unless you're gunning for, unless you have dead set in your mind, it's not a keeper league and you don't have to worry about that, or it is a keeper league and a lot of quarterbacks are already gone and the pool is very thin. Unless you're gunning for one of those top dogs, just wait. Just wait. Unless you're gunning for it, unless you're dead set, you 100% want Allen, Lamar, Hurts, or Mahomes.
Yeah.
Just wait it out because like Joe said before, you could get a Trevor Lawrence so late. You could get a Burrow kind of late. You could get Tua very late, and Tua put up fucking insane fantasy numbers last year.
And
Like,
Anthony Richardson could pay dividends.
Anthony Richardson. I mean, you got 2 rookie quarterbacks in Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels that are probably going to be in pretty good this year, I would think, because they use their legs as well as their arms, and they're going to get you some points that way as well. So I mean, you could wait it out. The quarterback run starts and people start panicking. Don't be that person who panics when the quarterback run begins and feel like you got to, because a lot of times when that quarterback run starts, and everyone knows what I'm talking about, one guy picks a quarterback and the domino effect happens.
The Showtime thing happened this year.
Oh my God, bro. That's a whole nother story. But dude,
picking the kicker and he expected
kicker was,
everybody
bro,
else.
that was outrageous. I don't care what he says. That's that's fantasy. That's malpractice. That's fantasy malpractice. You can't do that.
I'm of the sort that a kicker and a defense should be your last 2 picks, or
I agree.
last 3 picks.
I agree
Because a lot of the time you end up streaming guys anyways, or
that's
like
correct.
you don't know who's going to be good, and somebody comes out.
Yeah.
It's not like
unless you want like Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker, like you're
well, no,
dead set.
the
Or
Dallas
Aubrey.
kicker
Or
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
That
And
dude's-
Aubrey's a great option because he plays indoors. That's another big thing about Aubrey. But quarterback wise, like I was saying, the domino effect starts when one guy picks a quarterback and the levee breaks. And then all of a sudden it's like the floodgates are open. That's
People
a great
panic.
opportunity to sneak in and fucking take a quality wideout, a quality mid-tier running back, a top tier tight end. So don't feel the pressure there, unless you're dead set that you have to have one of those guys. Let it go. Let it run. Let it run.
I definitely panicked when Josh Allen went off the board. Not that I wanted Josh Allen, but I was like, here comes.
But you wanted Josh Allen.
No, I didn't want Josh. I got the
didn't
guy
want
that I
him, okay.
wanted. I got Jalen Hurts. But I
Did you
just-
get
I
Hurts?
started to
Good for you.
panic.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
I started to panic that like, oh boy, if I don't take one right now, by the time it gets back to me, I was picking.
See, I
shit,
waited.
too.
I went Richardson. I waited, and I think I got another good running back or wide receiver, like what Mikey's talking about, instead of going for the quarterback. Because I was like, there was Burrow and there was Richardson left, and I was like, I think on the way back, I'm gonna get one of those 2 guys. So
But
I mean,
both of those- Go
I
for it,
went
Michael.
early on Mahomes only because I've never had Mahomes in a
Mm.
fantasy league before ever.
and
I
you got
want
Kelsey.
I want the Mahomes experience paired with Kelsey. And then, but like Joe said, like Tua, I mean, I understand the knocks on Tua. I'll knock Tua. I'll say the guy can't play once November hits. And the end of the year Dolphin schedule is absolutely murderer's row. Their schedule is so bad. And that's an important strategy to look at too. Take a look at some of these teams' final like games for playoff weeks for fantasy. You should do that. Just a little bit of a heads up. But I got him so late. I was like, it's a valuable pick. I was like, just because, if one of the rookie quarterbacks start to show out, maybe I could stream them or something like that. But Joe is right. If you wait around, sometimes you
I got
you
Puka
step in
Nacua.
shit. You could step in shit.
Yeah, good. And take a look at the bye weeks, by the way, too. Some people don't take a look at bye weeks.
Yeah, and that'll crush you.
Week 12, they need a whole new team because
I'm a little fucked with the bye weeks this year myself. It's a lot to try and configure, and nothing will go according to plan come draft night. Like the wrenches will get thrown into your plan. but
Sure.
you can only prepare as best you can.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing with Richardson, Joe, is I was highly considering him too, but coming off a year with Aaron Rodgers, man, where he banged me immediately. I
You
wanted
took
a
him.
guy. I know it took him, but as my second QB, he was my first QB last year.
Yeah.
He totally obliterated my team. And I just wanted a reliable guy. Now watch, the guy I took's gonna fucking get hurt, but hopefully not, for many reasons.
Hopefully not.
He's my guy in more ways than one. Um, he is. I ripped him a lot last year, but
Yes, you did.
Nevertheless,
I am so bullish on the Eagles this year, dog.
you are.
Oh my God. Oh, wait till you hear that Futures Friday episode.
Oh.
I am so bullish on the Eagles, Tick. It's actually silly.
Do you
Silly.
like them to win the whole thing, Mikey?
I mean, they're one of my Super Bowl teams.
If you had,
Dick, I don't understand why you downplay how good they're going to be.
I just want
with
this
Barkley
coach to. I
now-
want this coach to not fuck it up. I want
That's-
Sirianni to
that's
take
one
a
big
step
reason,
back
Joe.
this year, cut the ego bullshit, and let those guys go out and let Hurts just run the fucking team.
Saquon is going to have a massive year.
I hope so. I'm
need everyone
expecting
to
him
stay
to do
healthy.
so.
If everyone
Yes.
can stay healthy, we got.
Well, that's not everyone's going to stay healthy, but
No.
Mikey,
your
we need
majority key contributors.
we need every last one. of
Every
them to
single
stay
person. No one get injured.
And that defense that people thought was going to be so great, we need them to fucking step up too. How
Yeah.
about that, huh?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
did some pieces. We got Gardner back, and we got
Two fresh corners from the draft.
I'd like to think, because we would, if you wanted to throw deep on us, dude, you could beat us every day of the week.
Yeah,
Just
that can't
throw
happen.
it deep,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Our corners couldn't keep up with anybody. Neither here nor there. Hopefully they'll be better. Mikey's very bullish on them, so that
I
makes
am. I am. I like them, Tick. I do.
all right, moving right along here. Johnny Kilroy wants to know: will Debo have a career year once the Ayuk debacle
Oh,
is over?
well, it really
That's
depends.
Joe's guy.
Listen, I love Debo so much, man. But
He
he is,
does.
I have him. I have him this year.
he's so frustrating. He is so frustrating
I bet.
because he will single-handedly win you weeks in your fantasy. And then there's weeks where you literally have to wait until game time and he'll end up playing and he'll play 3 snaps and he'll have like a hamstring injury and he'll catch 2 balls and just leave the game. And you're like,
Oh,
yo,
no.
where is this guy? So again, it's a big question mark with him is his health. Like it seems like he gets hurt every year. When he's healthy, I will say he is as fun a guy to have watch play
Yes,
as anyone in the league because he can do it all, man. He'll line up in the backfield, he'll do it all. I think Ayuk's gonna stay with the Niners. So I don't think he's going to Pittsburgh. And and if that's the case, I think you're gonna see. I think it's actually better for Debo to have Ayuk there. I really do, because it gives him an opportunity to not get doubled as the number 1 receiver. And so I think that's going to help him out. But again, it's just a big question mark is his health. It's feast or famine. We'll see what happens. But I mean, listen, if you can get him at a decent, position, you take him and don't think twice.
Beautiful. All right. I mean, I have him this year, so I am nervous for everything that Joe just.
He's going to drive you nuts some weeks, Tick, and then some weeks you're going to be like, this guy's the fucking man.
Yeah, I think Debo could, again, comes back to him saying he's not.
That
he's
week
20
against the Eagles, he had like fucking 2-3 touchdowns. He was unbelievable.
He's 28 years old. He had his second highest fantasy output year last year. 21 was the year where he went absolutely nuclear. He was like the top fantasy player in 21. 22, that big time regression, but he missed a lot of games. Last year only missed 2 games. But still second highest fantasy output he's ever had last year. So it's not like this guy's like falling off a cliff or he's declining or anything like that. It's just a matter of, is Ayuk staying there? How's the distribution of the football going to look? Really, now the 49ers lost their backup running back today. Elijah Mitchell's got put on season-ending IR today. So they only got CMC and then a guy that nobody ever heard of backing him up. Kittle, again, is Kittle going to get a lot of targets? Okay. But I think Debo could be the target-heavy guy, especially if they do end up not being able to settle with Ayuk. And if he does go somewhere else, not even if it's Pittsburgh, wherever he goes, So I think Debo is a pick that you should feel comfortable with and confident with. I would not be. You can't predict injury. It's fantasy
No.
football. Anybody could fucking get hurt the first play of the game. That's a pick I would make and would make with pretty good confidence. Tick.
All right. I mean, I like him as the number 2 guy. If you get a guy before, I wouldn't trust him as the number 1. What your first
As your number 1 receiver, you mean? Okay,
correct?
yeah, I get it.
Yeah. As
Who's your number 1 receiver?
Mr. DJ Moore.
Oh yeah,
That's a guy Tick
he's
loves.
a dog, man. He's
I
a
love
dog.
DJ Moore. I
He's a
love
dog.
everything
He loves
about
football.
how he plays.
Yeah, he loves football.
He's got a
Football guy.
quarterback this year.
He
I like
does.
the Fields,
He
but
does.
it's an upgrade. Let's call it what it is.
It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade.
All right, moving right along here. Nate Hunsinger wants to know who are some sleeper running backs to look out for in the later rounds. So we kind of went over that, but I mean, just some deep ones, some deep cuts.
Sure. Running backs. Let's talk handcuff guys that I think are going to be really good. The number 1 guy to me is the Dallas backup, is Rico Dowdle. Now, I don't know how late you're going to get him. He's going pretty early in the drafts, and I think for good reason, because I don't see Ezekiel Elliott floating that boat for a majority of the season. I like him a lot. I like Jaleel McLaughlin from Denver, the backup for Javonte Williams. If you're going like super deep, Braylon Allen from the Jets, the backup for Breece Hall. He could be a kid that really, if Breece goes down, I'm kind of on this wave this year of I like to look at running backs that are injury prone or really old that are slated as the running back 1. And I hate to do that with Christian McCaffrey. I kind of like the idea of Elijah Mitchell, but today he got put on season ending IR. So I got to look elsewhere, but I kind of like looking at like a Zach Charbonnet from Seattle, backing up a Kenneth Walker who always fucking gets hurt. Look at those guys and I'm not even saying you got to handcuff them. I think they're good to go drafting on their own. I don't even think don't pass up Rico Dowdle because you didn't get Ezekiel Elliott. I wouldn't do that. I think that'd be an oversight. Don't pass up Charbonnet because you didn't get Kenneth Walker. Don't pass up Braylon Allen because odds are you're not going to get Breece Hall. He's going to go top 5. So those are some of the guys I'm looking at, Tick. Those handcuff guys to guys who are injury prone and getting up there in age a little bit.
Okay. Joey D.
I like a couple guys, guy who regressed terribly last year, but I think I think
he's going with.
I'm going Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard, here's a guy. Like, listen, I know they got
here's a guy.
They got Spears there, but they just paid him a lot of money. Last year, Tony Pollard was going so high in all these fantasy drafts, and he didn't do anything, but he still is the same guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think with Levis, they're smart to hand the ball off and use a heavy run. There's no Derrick Henry there now. So I would think that he's going to have an opportunity to cement himself. I think he could be a guy who's set for a bounce back year. So he's one guy that I would look at. Another guy, I'll give you a couple rookies that I think could be good. Jonathan Brooks is a first name. Now, he has the ACL injury. I understand
starting the season on the pup. So
I understand that, but I'm saying this is why he's a late pick.
Yep.
I do think if he comes middle of the season, Mikey, with his skill set, and really, I'm sorry, but Miles Sanders is gone. I mean, the guy is done.
Tank Bigsby ain't it.
I mean, so they picked him. What did they take him? The second round. I do think that this is a guy who's going to get his reps, who's going to get his touches, and he could be like a second half of the year kind of guy to really do something special for you. And then the last guy that I'll go with is
not Tank Bigsby, but I meant Chuba Hubbard, not Tank.
Hubbard.
Tank Bigsby's on the Jaguars, and Tank Bigsby actually might be decent, but that's neither here nor there.
The other guy that I like is my goodness, where I had him, the Packers backup, Marshawn Lloyd, from USC. I really like this guy.
Now AJ Dillon's out of the picture.
AJ Dillon's out of the picture. I understand that you
hated AJ Dillon, Joe.
The guy I don't understand. He's built like Saquon, and he can't fucking get a yard for a goal to go carry. It's unbelievable, man. It's so. But Marshawn Lloyd, he's a guy who I think, all things considered, I think he's got a ton of skill set coming out of USC. I think the Packers are going to be able to utilize him. Josh Jacobs is their starter, but again, you're looking at a guy who could be a potential handcuff and a guy who's got a ton of skill set, a rookie, so you haven't seen much about him. So a lot of these guys in drafts are not taking these guys until really late in rounds. So you could get a guy like that super late and just store him and stash him on the bench. And he could end up, God forbid, as a Packers fan, I hope, God forbid, Josh Jacobs doesn't get hurt. But if he does, now you got a guy who's going to be the number one running back in that backfield. He's a little banged up right now, but I think I always like to do what Mikey said, look for handcuffs, look at guys who could cement themselves, especially in a good offense. An offense like the Packers have with Jordan Love slinging the ball all over the place. You got tons of playmakers. That backfield's going to, you're not going to have a heavily stacked box. So you're going to have opportunities if they get a guy in there who's got some skills, who can make some plays and assert himself as a good player. So those are a few guys that I like. Late. Tick, do you have anybody in mind that you like?
Well, first of all, I want to say the two guys that Mikey brought up, he's standing by him because he's got both of those guys on his team. He's got Rico Dowdle and he's got Charbonnet. So that's one thing. I didn't know you had Rico Dowdle. I find that
Yeah.
you like him. I mean,
I do. I like him a lot.
Even
I think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be the more utilized version of Tony Pollard to Ezekiel Elliott for Dallas. I do. I really do. That's what I expect from him this year. I just can't see how Dallas is going to trot Ezekiel Elliott out there on 3 downs. I just can't see it. And that's not an insult to Zeke, but I mean, this guy was carrying the ball 40 times a game 10 years ago in college in the national championship game. So now what the fuck? It's just,
He's
the
long.
mileage is there, man. The mileage, it's no joke with these running backs,
Yeah, true. A guy I like to have a bounce back year. It's a hot take. I don't think many people agree with it. I don't even know how late he'll necessarily go, but Austin Eckler, I think, backing up.
Wow.
I don't hate
Really with that Washington offense?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's more reason that they'll be going to him a lot. I mean, I know he's backing up with Brian Robinson Jr. They like him a decent amount there.
Yeah,
But
B-Rob
he's
from
handcuffed.
Bama.
It's a later pick. I have to imagine he's going in the 7th round right now, 7, 8. Austin Eckler, maybe even higher, north of that, Mikey.
Maybe. I think so.
I think you take a flyer on Austin Eckler to have one. I mean, he had that 2 years ago. He was still a good player. He was a great player. And then he banged everybody in fantasy last year who took him. I think Bob took him in our league and absolutely fucked him. But I think in Washington with a not so, I mean, when you're in Los Angeles with Justin Herbert, he's going to be throwing the ball a lot. And you're going to miss out on touches.
But Harbaugh likes to run the ball.
Yeah, but he wasn't there with Harbaugh, I'm saying.
That's correct.
So when he was in Los Angeles, this Brandon Staley, this guy liked to throw it a lot. I think in Washington he's gonna get a shot, and he could end up being the guy that he was last year, or he could end up being that guy from 2 years ago. That's why he's a late round pick. I think that's a decent guy to take a shot on. Another guy is a guy that I did pick up this year is TJ Spears. I don't.
Tajay Spears.
Is it Tajay?
Yeah, Tajay Spears. Yeah.
So you're going against Pollard then, because essentially.
Correct.
Okay, so you're the other end.
Like Mikey said, there's not a lot of teams with a bell cow anymore.
That's
There's
correct.
not many teams. So most teams are going to have this situation where you don't have a back out there for 3 downs straight. I mean, I think those guys are few and far between. I like him. I like what he saw. I had him late in the year last year. I thought he was serviceable, especially if you can get him in one of those last rounds where you should be taking a kicker in a defense. Maybe consider getting Tajay Spears.
Another one too. We mentioned him earlier. I mean, if you have like a last couple of spots open, just take a flyer on him, put him on the bench, and see what happens. Is Nick Chubb? Because again, if he does come back, and I know we talked about Jerome Ford and all that stuff, but if you could get him with one of your last picks, Michael, don't you agree? Like to have him at least. As an option.
Yeah, you park him on. That's
what I'm saying.
Yes,
I mean,
it's
you
worth
could
it.
even some leagues have an IR spot, so you could even just park him on an IR. And you know what? If nothing happens, nothing happens. But a guy like that with all the talent in the world, if he does come back, and he is able to come back, I mean, that's a guy. What are you risking? A second last pick that you're probably going to use for a waiver wire?
No, I would imagine Chubb is going to get drafted in more drafts than none, and he's going to go probably. after the 12th round, maybe like after the 10th, 12th round, like somewhere in that region, people will start taking flyers at that point. Here's another name that 2 years ago, this guy busted onto the scene. Last year, nothing, very quiet. This year, Joe Mixon gets put in front of him. Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce looked so good 2 years ago. And I just feel like this year, like Joe Mixon, another guy. How old is fucking Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon been in the league a very, very long time. A lot of tread worn off those tires. I just think maybe Dameon Pierce is a guy you give another shot. But again, that's a pick that has to be made very smart. Like you got to set like, okay, if we get past round X, I'll take a flyer on Dameon Pierce. Don't reach for a guy like Dameon Pierce. But I think it could be an interesting guy like Joe with Chubb.
Yeah, Houston's is an interesting one because there's so many mouths to feed. Even on
Correct.
like the receiving end of it, like you got Diggs, you got Nico Collins, you got Tank Dell. I mean, like any of those guys could go off, and then you can throw Mixon in the mix. But I do agree, Mixon has had histories of injuries to Michael in the past. So
Yeah.
again, not a bad guy to have sitting there just getting ready to pick up and take
That's right.
off if
That's
Mixon goes down.
Yeah, and maybe one quick last guy is the guy for New York, Singletary, Devin Singletary. I mean, I think
I hate that
I think
fucking guy,
I think he's
man.
the main guy there, though. I mean, and with Danny Dimes throwing the
Joe
ball.
hates. Joe hates.
Why do you
You
hate
know
him?
why I
Devin
hate him is because
Singletary.
he's the guy that if you have him on your team, he does fucking nothing. And as soon as you drop him, he goes off the next week and scores 3 touchdowns. Like he is a feast or famine, like poster child. Like he's had all the talent in the world. He was with the Buffalo. He's floated around the league. Some might call him a journeyman tick. And you know, he's just a guy who annoys me because I would never feel confident putting him in my lineup. But I do agree they got to run the ball with someone.
They do. Didn't he do a stint in Chicago, Mikey?
No,
No, not
He was never there?
Singletary.
no. You're thinking of Mike Singletary.
No, I'm certainly not thinking of
No,
Mike
no.
Singletary, the journey.
The samurai linebacker.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's move on to the next one. Travis Mitchell wants to know who is a rookie QB, running back, and wide receiver to draft.
I mean, plenty of good options out there. You talk about the top guys, obviously, Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams, 2 guys, especially in a dynasty format league. If you could grab one of those guys a little later and they come to fruition as a big time player in this league.
Marvin
I mean,
Harrison Jr. as wide receiver.
Those 3 first receivers that went are like slam dunk production guys this year. I think Roma Dunze, Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Neighbors, yeah.
Neighbors, you don't know. Just because of who's throwing him the ball.
Yeah, he may be quarterback proof. That's how good that kid is. I mean, he
really
is
fucking good.
He could be very special, Tick. He could be very special.
He could be. I mean, I think he's a great talent. It's just that the quarterback position is a serious problem.
Running back is where it gets interesting because we talked about Jonathan Brooks, but again, he's starting the year off on the pup. So, you know, there's that. You got Trey Benson with the Cardinals. You got Jalen Wright with the Dolphins. You got Blake Corum. You know, Corum to me is an interesting guy. I know Tick likes Kieran Williams, and I like Kieran Williams too, to be honest. And especially, you know, him going now as being named the punt returner today, my McVay gives you another kind of interesting dynamic there. Because I don't know, some leagues they'll give you, if he returns a punt for a touchdown, that should count as 6 points for him. Now, will it? I don't know. It depends how your league format scoring goes, but that's another opportunity for him to touch the ball. But certainly any of those guys is interesting.
Joey D?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in terms of the quarterbacks, I think Caleb Williams is probably going to be your best bet out of Jaden Daniels looked tremendous last year with LSU, but I don't know, that Washington line last year was so fucking bad that like he might be getting tackled and sacked every 3rd play. So yeah, I would say another guy, we talked about him, Michael. I'm going to bring him up again. Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a guy listen, he deserves to be mentioned because
no, he does. Won the starting job.
He's going to be a starter. He's looked very competent. I wouldn't put him at the same level as Caleb Williams, but like if you're no, of course not. But if you're in a league with one quarterback and you could store a guy on your back, you know, as somebody to watch, I think he's definitely worth a watch. as especially in a dynasty league. You know, you might want to have somebody that you can pick late come to fruition. Wide receivers, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. to me is the best of the bunch. Just
Sure.
his talent level, he's going to be the number one guy on that team. And I think Kyler Murray's going to be looking at him early and often. So
I agree.
all the guys you mentioned are good neighbors. But Adunze is probably the third option in that receiving core.
Oh,
second or
no.
third.
Two.
You think
Two.
he's ahead of Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen, yeah, I do. I think Keenan Allen, yeah, I think by the time the season's over, he may be Caleb's favorite guy, but definitely I would say he's two.
Well, I still would say, I mean, Neighbors is going to be cemented as
Neighbors
number one,
is the one. Neighbors is the one.
But I'm
with
saying
bullet.
if you, again, to Tickett's point though, you got Kyler Murray throwing the ball as opposed to Daniel Jones.
Yes.
I'll take that with the bullet. And I actually
Yes.
think Marvin Harrison is just, he's a freak of nature.
Yes,
so I would take him. And then Trey Benson, same team, Arizona. I think he's a really interesting guy to keep an eye on as a rookie running back.
Listen, Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, and Rome will probably cost you a little high of a pick if you want to look mid-tier. Don't go past Keon Coleman with Buffalo. Because like we talked about, besides Khalil Shakir and besides Dalton Kincaid, who is Josh Allen throwing the football to? Keon Coleman's role is going to be big, and it's going to be big right away. And also Xavier Worthy for the Chiefs. That could be fireworks. And listen, I don't expect Xavier Worthy's not going to get you 7 catches a game. Okay. But Xavier Worthy may get you 2 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown.
Marquise Brown is kind of like, he is the question mark there, because if
he's hurt, so he's got to come back.
But I'm saying if he ends up being like a good player that Mahomes goes to, then Xavier Worthy's value drops significantly. If
Rice is the one right there right now.
I agree. But and then just brought Juju Smith-Schuster back now too. No,
yeah, and that should tell you a little bit of something. Maybe that means that Hollywood Brown's progress is not going as quickly as they like, but they did cut what's his name today, so that could be the reason why they cut oh my God, the kid from Florida that the Giants drafted, Kadarius Toney got cut by the Chiefs.
That guy is trash.
Yes,
man.
he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So he got cut by the Chiefs today. And then the last thing I'm going to say, rookie wise, running back Braylon Allen. Man, I'm high on this Braylon Allen with the Jets. This kid is a fucking stud. The problem is obviously
Breece
he
Hall's
plays
so good,
right?
Though.
But the thing is Breece just got to watch. If he gets dinged up, Braylon Allen could be a nice little
Breezy
Hall. I got him on the roster. Let's not.
I'm saying for a week or two, Tick. He's not. Not a season ender.
I do. Yeah, I do.
Oh, you're gonna be watching some Jets games this year.
So
dog.
Tick, your quarterbacks in the Brilliantly Dumb League are Hurts and Rodgers.
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, and then you've got Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's your other running back?
And Derrick Henry.
Oh,
I don't mind that, Tick.
That's a great backfield. It's a great backfield.
Wow.
Then we got
I like that
DJ
backfield
Moore,
a lot.
Debo Samuel, Scary Terry McLaurin.
That's a great team, man.
Kittle. And then we got Kittle.
That's a great team.
Who's a great tight end, but he for whatever reason.
The Terry McLaurin pick is great.
Yeah.
He's the number one. Jahan Dotson gone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the bullet
Browns
one.
defense too. I'm high on my team. I think
good. You should be. It's a good team.
As long as Aaron can he screwed me last year. I mean, I was
screwed a lot of people.
Well, he got hurt. It wasn't like anything he did wrong.
Of course, I know.
By the way, friend of the pod.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, not this one. So I'm going to say something about that. I have the worst feeling, and I picked him anyway.
Oh no,
I have
bro.
the worst feeling it's going to happen again.
No.
Oh,
fuck off.
What are you doing, man?
Tick, don't put that out there.
I'm just saying. I have the worst feeling.
He's gonna have a great year.
I hope you're right, Joe, because I really like the guy.
I'm fucking rooting for him, man.
Me too. I like the guy a lot, even when people thought he was a prick and pompous. I've always liked him. I like his style. I like the way he plays, and I think he seems like a pretty fun guy to hang out with. To be honest,
he is. I can confirm.
I'm always rooting for him. I mean,
I'll confirm that.
I love him, but
would you do some ayahuasca with him?
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah. Yeah. Off the record. Yeah. And theoretically, yes. Right. Actually, no, but theoretically, yes.
Go watch that Eagles concert after that.
Oh my.
Oh
Take
boy.
it to the limit one more time.
Could you imagine just being next to Aaron Rodgers singing that song?
No, I couldn't
Take
tick.
it to
Oh.
the limit.
Oh my God.
Arms around each other's shoulders.
Oh man.
Oh man.
I would let everything he ever did to the Bears, I'd let it go at that point, man. It would all bygones would truly be bygones, Tick.
Beers flowing. Maybe he's wearing that Yankees hat again.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he is. Clemson Mike right next to us. And by Clemson Mike,
Oh
of course,
my.
I mean Mercedes Lewis. Yes, indeed.
Oh, that's hysterical. Did you hear that Tick? What happened?
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
Yes,
it's
we
all-
all know the story, Joe. Everybody knows the story. Let's
There it
move
is.
on.
Feel-
Next question.
Feel
Next
free to
question.
tell it, Joe. Feel free to tell it.
No, next question. Next question.
All right. Wait, is he an Eagles fan though? Like, is he a confirmed Eagles guy?
Who?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I
Oh.
was just saying that. I was.
Oh, I
just
didn't
joking.
know if he was.
I would venture a guess that Aaron Rodgers doesn't not like the Eagles.
Yeah.
I think if you're doing ayahuasca, most people who do ayahuasca like the Eagles.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be.
I would agree.
Yeah. All right, moving on here. Evander Conair. That's quite a name as well.
Great
movie.
name.
If not CMC one, who would you take?
PPR league, you got to look at CD and you got to look at the two guys we talked about at the start of the show, Tyreek and CD Lamb. I mean, those are especially PPR. I mean, PPR league, CD, Tyreek, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall. That's kind of where the cutoff is.
I like
for me.
Bijan Robinson, to be honest. I think he's going to have a tremendous
As
year.
the 1-1, Joe?
Not in a PPR, non-PPR league,
Okay.
Michael. I like Bijan.
Oh, a traditional score. you're
Standard
saying.
league.
Okay.
I think he's going to be better than Breece Hall, and I think he's going to get a shit ton of looks and action. And I'm very high on the Falcons offense this year. I think Cousins is going to. I'm taking a flyer on him. He's my second quarterback. I also took Pitts. I think the Falcons this year are going to find something offensively, and I think it's going to come on the off the legs of Bijan Robinson. This guy is a tremendous talent.
I hope they don't bang it, Joe.
Listen, I'm in on Pitts. I'm on Cousins. I might be so pissed by week 4 of this year, but this is a pick for me that it's like feast or famine. It's either going to pay off wonderfully because I got Cousins so late, or it's going to totally fucking derail me.
If I had to pick the worst divisions in football to bet games on,
NFC
NFC South would be on the top of the list. It would be on the top of the list.
They're getting the Saints. They're getting
The
Bucks.
Saints.
The Saints are a train wreck, man.
Joe went on so many tangents
too, though.
The Falcons, I think, could win that division.
Here you go.
The Panthers are fucking trash. The Buccaneers, I'm sorry, I love Baker Mayfield, friend of the pod, but I don't
tell it how it is, though.
They're not going to do that again.
The guy. Tell it how it is.
They're not a great team, Michael. They're not a great team.
You're right.
And the Saints don't have a fucking guy who can throw the football. They're better off with fucking crab-licking fingers coming off the fucking bench.
Don't talk about our king like that, bro.
Yeah,
Jameis is a king.
I love
bro.
Jameis. I'm saying he's better. I'm saying I think he's better. Anyways, I'm just saying I think the Falcons.
That's one of the greatest things of all.
I'm just saying I think the Falcons can win that division, and I think Bijan Robinson's going to have a monster year. Going back to what I was saying, I think he could be a number 1 pick. But you're an idiot if you don't take Christian McCaffrey 1. You have got to go with the guy who this guy is a receiver and a running back at the same time, and he gets everything. And he scores a touchdown every fucking game. You have got to take. I can't imagine a world where you're like, I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey 1, unless it's a dynasty league where he's capped from a different prior. But most dynasty leagues, at least in mine, there's a caveat that you can't keep a player in the first or second round. So like you wouldn't be able to keep McCaffrey, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
So I think McCaffrey's got to be 1. I don't see a world where he's not.
God forbid anything happens to Kirk Cousins this year. Do you still like the Falcons as much if Penix came in?
No.
Yeah, I like Penix as well.
Okay.
No.
Mikey,
you don't?
No, I don't see how you
Not
can.
to
I
Kirk
mean,
Cousins level,
well,
but
that's what I'm saying. Like, I like the Falcons a lot right now. I don't like them as much with Penix. I just don't. I mean,
the
he's a rookie,
Falcons.
injury prone. They didn't play him at all in the preseason. Uh,
Yeah,
it'll
what's
be
that
tough.
about, by the way?
I just don't know. I don't know if his body's 100% right yet, man. This guy, I mean, this guy's been through the ringer. This guy, I mean, torn ACLs in fucking Indiana, goes over to fucking Washington, gets hurt. Last year, by the time that national championship game rolled around, he was so fucking banged
Yeah.
up. It's just, I don't know physically how well he's going to hold up. And, Kirk, I mean, that's a guy who, with the weapons at his
Oh,
disposal, like Joe was talking about, Drake London and Pitts and Bijan and Darnell Mooney now is the two. This is a team, Atlanta, and they added Judon. They got two of the best safeties in football. This is a team that made some moves to try and do something to help that defense out because the defense is going to be abysmal. That team's going to be interesting. They should win that division in their sleep.
I
In their
know.
sleep.
I really believe. I believe so too, Michael. Two
Yeah.
teams I'm gonna be high on betting this year, Michael, early on.
Falcons and Denver.
You betcha.
I
Why
love
Denver?
I love just being on the same, like, I just love knowing exactly how Joe's mind works when it comes to
What's
gambling.
up with
It's like
Denver?
one of my favorite things. It's Bo Nick's show, dog.
That's the whole thing?
Yeah, that's it.
No, it's not just the Bo Nix. I think they're a solid team, man. I think they're a solid team.
Okay.
Joe,
I
I'm
think
I'm
they're
gonna
not-
ride with you. I'm gonna ride with you because I'm a rider. That's what I do.
I like that, Michael. I
Yes.
do, but
Yes.
I think Javonte Williams is good. I love Cortland Sutton. He looked unbelievable last year.
Stud. SMU dog.
By the way, this Marvin Mims when he went to the Jets, he was supposed to be the guy, and he never came to fruition. Maybe he finds something up there in the elevation of fucking Denver.
Mile high.
Maybe
Tick,
better.
I would like you to get involved too if we're
Sure.
doing.
Sure. I'm all in.
Tick's
I really
always
like the
Tick always
Falcons.
rides. Tickle ride.
But the thing with what's so frustrating is Javante is very frustrating, especially as a fantasy player. I've had him a couple times, man. He's got all the talent. He is a good back, but he just with him with Russell Wilson, they couldn't figure anything out, man. They couldn't figure any. He was abysmal on the fantasy side of things. And it's like and then every year comes back around, and you're like, oh yeah, he's a good running back. Maybe I should take a flyer on him. And then he disappoints me every year. This year I couldn't go that way. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. All right, next question. Timothy Guerrero needed deep sleeper tight end. Last year I drafted Hawkinson and banged myself.
I don't know what he's talking about with that. Hawkinson was great, except until he got hurt. But Hawkinson was great last year, I thought.
But he was drafted much higher last year than he's going this year.
Fair. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I mean, Hawkinson this year is kind of a sleeper because he's being avoided so much,
Yeah. So any deep late round tight ends that you guys like?
Yeah, I like Jonnu Smith in Miami. I think that could be interesting. Isaiah Likely, Baltimore.
Yeah.
He kind of made some plays last year, turned some heads when Andrews missed a lot of action. Kate
What about Brock Bowers?
Yeah, I think Bowers is going to be a popular play, though, even though he's a little dinged up too, I believe. I just think like he'll kind of, I don't know. I think he'll be a popular pick. I don't know how late he'll be available.
You know who I like, Michael? And I don't think
your tight end?
Musgrave is good, but I actually like Cole Kmet. I think he looked really solid at the second, like the last 5 to 6 games of the season for the Bears. He made some great plays and caught some touchdowns.
He's a good tight end.
I think he might get lost in the shuffle of, all these guys that you have to cover. He might get some, if he can develop a rapport with Caleb, I think he could be a popular red zone target.
Especially
and when you're looking at a tight end, right, in fantasy football, unless you have Travis Kelce or George Kittle or one of those guys,
Laporta,
yeah,
you're looking just, if you can get one touchdown in a week, you have already surmounted the ranking, the projected points that you're looking for from a tight end.
That's right.
If you can get you 6 to 8 points in a week, you've done what you need to do. So I always look at guys who are going to be good red zone option choices, right? And I think Cole Kmet is a guy
Yeah, for sure.
who could be a bit of a blanket, kind of guy for Caleb Williams. If some of these other guys are getting, highly covered, if they develop a rapport, I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, rookie QBs tend to like tight ends a lot. I mean, they devise a lot of plans for. I mean, maybe Caleb's different since he's, the second coming. But
You said that, not me. I want that for the record. Ticket said that, not me.
Oh,
Okay?
no, sick.
Well, it's the Bears, man. All right. I mean, yeah, I like the Cole Kmet pick. Am I wrong about this? Am I misremembering, or does he sometimes get a case of the drops?
He does get a case of the drops. I was going to say it. He did it in the preseason wide open play that he dropped. I was very pissed off about it. I'm glad it's preseason, but yes, he has been known to. He'll make a couple spectacular catches, but he needs to catch every ball that hits his hands. He needs to catch. He just has to. He has to. He has to.
He does. He does. Hey, he does.
I'll give him 3 drops this year. 3.
Oh, that's it? He might get
That's
that
it.
one game, Mikey.
He gets 3 drops, and they better not be in the second half of the season.
All right, fair enough. All right, we'll do one more and then we'll get out of here. This last one comes from David Kilk. Best fantasy punishment. This year's was number 10 spray tan for his.
Spray tan. Okay. Well, we had a good one in place. Whether or not Bob does it is a whole nother story.
Well, he's only got like how many days left, Joe? Like 10?
I'm a little worried. He's in Atlanta for the next few days. I don't know.
He'll never hear the end of it if he does.
And then we travel, Joe. There's like one day he can do it.
That'll be the day he has to do it, man. It is what it is.
Or I mean, Dickie Gas said that he will get an automatic loss, and Showtime will get an automatic.
And Gas will hold him to that.
Oh yeah,
No,
I think it'll happen every week that he doesn't do it.
The best fan. I like the fantasy punishments that I've seen where like they make the loser hold like a sign up on the side of the road, like begging for change in his underwear and stuff like that.
Like do a lemonade stand.
Yeah, the lemonade stand, that was a good one too.
Did like that one. I think you should do the lemonade stand until you raise a certain amount of money. If you don't raise it that day, you got to go back out the next day, and you got to go until you raise whatever the dollar is.
I like that. In my league, the only other league I play in now, we're drafting this weekend. We did a last place punishment, and it was the loser, the worst team, had to dress up in a French maid costume for the following year's live draft and serve the champion the entire night. Whatever the champion wanted from the previous year, get him drinks, whatever he wanted. The guy had to wear a French maid. Luna Lou. Actually, Luna Lou had to wear the French maid outfit. It was fucking unbelievable. He played it so well though, man. He was such a good sport. He wore a fucking French maid outfit. It was incredible.
He's a beast, that guy, man.
Yeah, he's something else.
That
was a good one.
Have you ever lost, Mikey, and had to do a punishment?
No, never last place. Yeah, no. Thankfully.
Yeah. Joe, any good ones?
I think all the things have been kind of stated. We do in my other league, the last place guy buys dinner for the fantasy draft the next year. So you got the whole
draft. Oh my!
You got to buy all the pizzas and wings and stuff.
Dog. Yeah,
that's a couple $100.
Yeah. I mean,
$100.
Yeah, that kind of stinks.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you know what? It benefits everyone else. So it's like one of those punishments. It's not like an embarrassing thing at all, but nobody definitely wants to have to buy. I mean, our group eats a lot of pizza, so you don't want to have to be forced into doing that.
Yeah, you got some big boys in that group, man.
Yeah, we sure do.
Bachelor party.
A lot of tall guys.
Yeah, there is a lot of tall guys, man. I'm still your tallest friend though, I think, which is good.
Warren's up there too.
He is. He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a fun guy, man. He's a hoot.
He's a character.
He is a character. The one in my other league is every year we do, whoever comes in last has to wear like an outfit that we choose, and they've got to run like a 5K in that outfit.
Oh God, yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's all I like. Kind of be honest, I like this spray tan one. That's pretty fucking hilarious.
Imagine Bob with spray tan.
Oh my God,
dude, they last for a couple weeks.
He would look so fucking ridiculous. That's actually great. It's actually great.
He would look so, or imagine Perez with the spray tan.
Oh my God.
Or
He'd look
Jet.
like a Cuban.
Jet. Jet would be the best spray tan of everyone. That would be the best one by far.
Well, Dickie Gas with the spray tan would be pretty good too.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would.
Yeah. It's a lot of spray they're gonna need on that forehead, dude.
Oh, yeah. This guy can't catch a break, dog.
I felt so bad for him that
I did
draft.
too,
man.
kind of.
Part of the
by the end.
business. Part of the
He
business.
was taking a lot of strays.
No one took it on the chin more than Perez, though. But he was highlighting them himself.
Yeah. He don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, boys. That's another episode of the Sportsman Fantasy Football Edition. Hopefully, we answered your question. If we didn't get to it, we do appreciate it, and maybe we'll throw it into the next couple weeks, and we'll still try and get to them. But we appreciate everyone who fired in some questions. Gentlemen, we're starting to get into the swing of things here. College football is back. NFL football almost back. We're getting into our prime time, guys. This is when the Sportsman really.
Yeah, this is a fun time to be alive. Really
Fun time to be alive. But until then, we hope that these questions helped you for your draft coming up, and we will see you guys next week.